So just a quick change here that I want to show. It's actually, you won't see it on the front end, it's just in the code. I realized that when I commit, the commit to the Firestore saves the information to the Firestore, but it also locally calls the listener that you set up to listen to that same collection. So when I originally get my information for my form, so this is the function that's called to retrieve the information for this form here. And when it does that, it calls the Firebase store, and it gets a collection, my main collection, which is primary relative caregiver, and it gets the document, the particular information for that caregiver is this document here. It returns, this lookup returns a listener that anytime this collection with this ID gets updated, it's going to run whatever's in here. So it was running this, and that was updating my my front end after I had just saved it. So you would type here, that would get saved to the Firestore database, and then at the same time it would get written back to this this form here. So it was doing double work. It's not really noticeable, but I just wanted to get rid of it. And that can be done by this looking at this returned object. Let's see, this doc object on the snapshot. So when every time new information comes in, it fires this function and throws in that document object. And you can look at the metadata and you can see if it has pending writes, which means if it has pending writes, it's a local call, which means the update didn't come from the database, it came locally. So I can show that probably if I just do a console.log. Console.log of that. So you'll see. So let's take a look at that. So here's my database. That just reloaded. So we're seeing the same thing. I'm going to clear the console and throw an S there. So it logged out true that the change was made locally. It has pending writes. So the commit, before this commit takes place, so when I type a key, ultimately this is what gets called to commit my change to the Firestore. And that's actually seen, that's seen in the client. So on key up, we call submit, and submit calls the store and dispatches that F commit. There's so many commits going on, I started naming the ones that go to the Firestore the F commit, because we have local commits and we have Firestore commits. I started naming these F commits. So F commit primary relative caregiver by ID, which is this function. So when I change something here, I'm ultimately calling this function, which fires the change off to the Firestore. And when it does that, at the same time it does that, actually before it does that, it actually locally updates the change on that collection. So if there's a listener for that collection, which it is the same collection, here's the collection here, and here's the collection here. They're the same collection, and they also have the same doc ID. So this gets called, and if it's a local one, it's going to have has pending writes true because it hasn't written yet. It's calling this functionality before finishing its functionality. So then it's a local call, and so that's why it showed up true. Why it showed up true here when I logged it. Now, if I make a change here in the database, and that's going to fire the change over to my database. So if I remove the yes and I click update, it's going to be false this time because it doesn't have a pending write. It came from outside. The write's already done, so it's an update locally. So this way, if I make a local change, if I don't have that check there, that doesn't allow this gets blocked from happening if this is true. The hasPendingWrites is true. It's a local write, so it gets false. This statement becomes false, so this never runs. But if it comes from the outside, this is true, and then it commits the changes, because we don't need to commit the changes locally. All I'm doing is when I click that, if I commit the changes back, I'm sending it to the Firestore, and then basically I'm sending it right back to this form and updating this form. So it was unnecessary. I think it's going to cause bugs later, so I just got rid of it now. It's a long explanation. Hopefully it was understandable, but there is a way to tell if your writes are coming from local or from the database is basically what to take from that.